First of all, I wanted to thank all of you for joining. This is by far our most popular webinar. We have had record-breaking signups on it and record-breaking attendance, so I'm really excited. I wanted to give you a quick overview of BillQuick 2012. It starts right around June or July of year before, which was 2011, with feature requests coming from our customers when we openly solicited through our newsletter. We received over 1,400 feature requests, and we did go through each and every one of those emails, which actually resulted in over 200 new and improved features. The work began around end of July, early August, and ended in March of 2012. That involved over 56,000 man-hours. That's like 27 years if one person was doing it. But of course, we had a big team, and the team's focus in designing 2012 feature set was performance. We wanted to make sure that we put a lot of focus on performance, primarily because many of our customers have been with us for over 5 years, and many of them for as many as 10 to 15 years. So the data in BillQuick company file was getting bigger, and performance was a big issue. We put a lot of emphasis on business intelligence and business automation this year. So that, it was primary focus. And also during the development meetings, during the meetings when we were trying to figure out what we need to include in 2012, we started asking questions on how we can leverage the existing data that you have in your company files and create an actionable information for you, which is intelligent, which allows you to focus on your bottlenecks and your winners and your losers. How can we automate those repetitive tasks that you typically are engaged on a day-to-day basis? Some tasks that take as little as 15 seconds, we wanted to even automate those. And then, of course, we wanted to leverage the new multi-core processors that are available easily on every computer nowadays. So BillQuick 2012 actually runs in multiple threads, allowing you to do multiple things at the same time, kind of part of our processor, but also part of our newer technology enhancements. This is something that's under the hood that you typically would not see. And lastly, our mission statement includes simplifying the complex, and that was a big focus also. How can we take the complex task and really simplify it? But before I dive into the 2012 new features, I wanted to thank all of you for providing amazing, amazing feature requests for us. And BillQuick, as you know, is a truly customer-driven innovation. And what I'm presenting today is not really my creation. It is your creation. You helped us shape these features, and all I'm doing is showing you today how we produce those in the 2012. So hopefully you will like our approach towards your requests. So in today's preview, we will be covering the big items. Of course, I can't go over 200 features in 45 minutes, so what I decided to do is just touch on the top features. And then towards the end, this is going to be the best part of the presentation, I'm doing a fast round where I'm taking that baker's dozen features and going through them really rapidly, maybe 30 seconds per feature, to give you an overview of what else is there that might be important for you. So sit back, relax. This is going to be a fun presentation, and by the time we end, hopefully you have a pretty good idea on what 2012 brings to the plate. One note I wanted to make: some of these features that we have in today's presentation are enterprise-only features or pro-only features. So please make sure you do check your version and then look at our website. It'll tell you which of those features are available in which version. So the first feature I wanted to show you that was included in 2012, and this is part of our helping you to provide better service to your clients. The concept was that often customers were typing in emails, writing thank you notes to their clients whenever their payments come in. We wanted to completely automate that process so that your clients appreciate the fact that you're keeping them up to date, and also the fact that you're appreciating their business. So, and it's extremely easy to set up. So let's take a look at BillQuick 2012. So the first thing we want to do is in the global settings in BillQuick, you want to go ahead and make 2 changes in the global setting. And by the way, notice that the global setting, the left side menu has been completely reorganized. This is part of our simplifying the complex. So in the global setting, as you can see, we have 2 settings that we need to adjust. The first one is to go under the email settings, and in there we added a new tab where you can type in the default email that you want to send to your clients. So you can set up your subject, and you can set up the body of the email. So you can type it in the way you like it. And of course, this is also available in user preferences. That way, each manager can have his own thank you note sent to his client. So this is where you do that write-up of the thank you email that you want to send to your clients whenever they pay your invoices, and you're done with that. This is a one-time deal, and you save it. The other setting that you want to do is under the billing section. There is a checkbox called Always Email Payment Receipt to the client. So if that checkbox is checked, BillQuick will then email a thank you note with the receipt of the payment to your clients anytime the payments sent. So let's see that part in action. So what I'm going to do is I'll take one of the client in here called City Services, and I'll go ahead and apply a $100 payment to that client. So here it is. I applied a $100 payment, and as soon as I save this payment, an email receipt has been already sent by the system to the client. So let's pull that email in, and let's take a look. And so here it is. That's the body of the email with the text, and of course the PDF that you can double-click and take a look at what it looks like. And it's a very simple electronic receipt of that payment, indicating the client that paid and how much was paid and the date it was paid and what was the form of the payment, and then of course the details about the invoice. This was a $200 invoice, and $100 were paid off of that. So very simple way of turning this feature on, and at the end of the day, letting your clients know that you do appreciate their business. So I highly encourage you to turn it on and make yourself differentiate from your competition by providing this kind of service to your clients, where you are keeping them informed about everything that's happening on the project, including when a payment actually does come in. The second feature that I want to show today is the ability for you to go ahead and bill your project expenses as a progress billing, and later on include them into the invoices. Last year, if you remember, we did this with the time entries. You could go ahead and do an invoice, and even if your time entries were not all in or they weren't all approved, you could still bill and later on tie those time entries to that invoice. Similar to that, and upon popular request from all of you, we go ahead and extended that to the expenses. And here's how it works. So let's go ahead and take a look at how you can take these expenses and attach to an invoice after the fact. So first thing I wanted to show you is an expense sheet from an employee here for project PV Country Club, and this is Bob's expense sheet. As you can see, there are 2 expenses on this expense sheet. There is a $300 charge for travel expenses. This is the hotel. And then there's also an airline ticket that was entered on 27th of April. And you might be doing billing on 1st of May, and maybe that expense entry is not approved yet, as is the case in this particular case. But you know that eventually it'll get approved, but you want to go ahead and get your invoice out, even though that expense has not been approved yet. So when you go to the billing review, and you basically run the billing for that one project, it will indicate only $300 billable as reimbursable expenses by your client. But you know that it's actually $900. So what if you wanted to go ahead and bill the entire $900 even though the second $600 expense is not approved yet? So you can go ahead and take a look at your actual expenses, which is $900 in this particular case. Go back to billing review, and this is new. You can now edit the expense cell and type in $900, and of course BillQuick will automatically adjust the net bill to $2,400 and mark it as billed, and it will assign it an invoice number 1205, and that's it. You're done. You can go ahead and process the invoice, and the invoice will be sent. So what BillQuick will do, it'll mark up the $300 expense to fit the $900 bill until you attach the other expense to it. So let's take a look at this invoice, what it looks like right now. with only one expense entry in there, travel expenses $900. So BillQuick has behind the scene done a 200% markup on that $300 expense line and shown it as $900 on that invoice. But for your profitability purposes, you want to go ahead and attach the other expense later on. So here on the expense sheet, I just wanted to show you the first entry turned into blue, which means it's part of the invoice, and it's been marked up as 200% in this particular case. So this is something that BillQuick will do automatically when you write up the expense. So now, here's that invoice. So let's go ahead and close that. And what you probably want to do now is go ahead and approve the other expense and then include it with the existing invoice. And all you have to do is after you approve it, you just right-click on it, click on the change menu, and this is on the change menu that we have added this change where you can now specify the invoice number you want to attach this to, and I'm going to attach it to 1205. And of course, you want it to recalculate the markup. So the 200% markup on the first entry is no longer needed. It will zero that out once I click on that OK button. So let's do that. And now your job costing is accurate. You were able to assign the expense later on. As you can see, the second expense has turned blue, and the markup's been reset to 0 on all of them. So now if you go ahead back to the invoice review screen and you want to re-look at that invoice, it will show both of those line items. So this gives you an ability to go ahead and bill in advance for expenses that you know are going to happen on this job. They're either on the credit card statement. The credit card statement hasn't arrived yet, but you know exactly how much the expense was. Bill those in advance, and then when the employees log those expenses, you can come back and attach those expenses to the invoice and have BillQuick then recalculate the profitability on that invoice and the actual job cost on that invoice. So no longer do you have to wait for people to complete their expense sheets if you already know what that expense sheet might be looking like. So an excellent way for you to improve that cash flow by not really holding off on that billing, during because of the fact that people haven't really filled the expenses. One quick note I wanted to make here on the expense sheet is that change option that I showed is available. That particular feature is available only when you're in the expense log and you're viewing by project, not by employee. That's the time you can actually attach expenses to a particular invoice. If you view by employee, you won't be able to attach that. So that was about the ability for you to go ahead and take those expenses and attach them later on. The next feature is something that comes from our experience of visiting our customers, and we noticed that an average BillQuick user runs about 1,000 reports in a given year. And if you are a company of 5, the chances are you're going to run those reports 4,000 to 5,000 times in a given year. And that, even though doesn't take much time to run the reports in BillQuick, but where we found the bottleneck in that process of getting to those reports was the fact of applying filters to those reports. People wanted reports in a certain way. For certain managers, they were applying filters, and they were doing it over and over and over again. So here's what we did in 2012 to save you 15 to 20 seconds in applying those filters, but now when you multiply it by 1,000 times, it will end up saving you a lot of time. So as an example, let's take my reports menu, and I'm going to pull in the Project Manager Billing Analysis Report. And let's say hypothetically you want to run it for this year. That's the first filter you want to apply. And you only want to run it for 2 or 3 project managers. Let's say these are the senior project managers that you want to run for. So you go ahead and pick your project managers, you preview the report, and you're done. So you can see the 3 project managers that are part of that report. Now, what happens if you come back next day or 3 days later or next month? So when you go back to the same report, notice as soon as I click on that report, BillQuick has automatically applied the filters that I used last time. So giving you the ability to just go ahead and hit preview and be done in processing that one report. So this, even though it will only save you probably 15 seconds, but trust me, once you multiply that by the 1,000 reports you're going to run in a given year, it'll save you several hours. And more importantly, make it easy or frictionless for you to go ahead and process those reports and not have to worry about what were the filters I used last time on those reports. So again, I'm running the same report without adding any filters because the filters were automatically added. Of course, in the report center, if you are looking at the report center as an example, take a look at the analysis section of the report. Notice that some of the reports are appearing in bold in the report center. So this is our way of indicating to you that BillQuick has remembered the filters on these reports the last time you ran it. So if you click on any of the report that is in bold letters, you will see that it does actually remember the filters that were applied to that report the last time. This is the project manager's billing analysis report, and we can see the same 3 project managers in here. So once again, don't worry about making every report favorite or memorizing every report. If this is not something that you anticipate to run often, don't worry, it will remember those filters. Again, the whole point was that people were making so many of their reports favorite that the favorite list was getting so long, or the memorized list was getting so long, so it was becoming difficult for them to dig through that. So that's a feature that's designed for getting rid of those repetitive, mundane tasks that we get engaged in over and over again in a given year. The next feature that I'm about to show here is a very popular request from users where you would memorize your reports. And when you memorize a report or you make a report a favorite and you would run it from BillQuick, it would not give you an opportunity to look at the filters that were applied to that memorized report. So that was a shortcoming that many of you told us, that you want an ability to run a memorized report but still be able to change the filters on it. And we did something really, really clever on that, and we simplified that task. So let me actually show you how that works. I have one memorized report here called Senior Manager's Billing Analysis Report. So when I run that report, because it's memorized, it will skip the filter, and whatever filters were applied to that report will be automatically shown at the top of the report so that you know what the filters are. But the problem came in, what if I want to change that filter? There was no way up until 2012 to go back and change those filters unless you would go back to the report center, change the filters, and memorize it again as a different report, or maybe just override the same one. No more you have to do that, because we really added a simple solution to this problem. On our toolbar, right in the upper right corner, you will see this tiny filter icon that you can click on any report, including your own custom reports that you might have customized yourself, or our report customization team might have done it for you. You can click on that filter icon on any report, and it will land you directly into the report center, and it'll show you the filters that are currently being applied to that particular report. So it doesn't matter how that report comes up on the preview window, that filter icon will actually take you back to the report center, pick that report for you, and allow you to, of course, change the filters. And you might come in and say, well, I don't need it for all the 3 managers. I only need it for one of the 3 managers. So you can go ahead and uncheck the ones that you don't need it for, preview it again. It does not overwrite the memorized report. This gives you one on-the-fly option of course, modifying that report. So once again, it's that tiny filter icon in the upper right corner next to the memorized and favorite button in there. Over time, calculation and BillQuick has been a feature that we had from pretty much from the first release back in 1996. And we have obviously modified it over again, but the challenge always was that what if an employee worked, let's say, 10 hours a day, and 8 hours of that were regular time, and 2 hours out of that were overtime. And what happens now if we later on realize that the 8-hour time entry or the 10-hour time entry in itself was a mistake, and we changed those 8 hours to 4 hours, and the 2-hour time entry is marked overtime, so the burden was upon you then to go back and fix that 2-hour time entry and change it also to regular time. So BillQuick did a good job of figuring out what's regular time and what's overtime as far as you were entering it. But if you go back and after the fact edit one of the time entries, then it did not go back and recalculate your entire timesheet. And that in itself was a problem because it made the overtime markings on those time entries kind of unreliable, just because people might have added or subtracted one of the time entry and updated it in a different way, and now that was causing it to be not accurate. So we solved that problem this year with this amazing overtime calculator that's got a very clever algorithm built into it. So to demonstrate this feature, let's take a look at an employee here. And we're going to take a look at Mark. And look at Mark's rates. His bill rate is $100, $150 is overtime, and then his cost rate is $30, and his overtime cost rate is $45. So that's his rate. On the Detail tab, this is where you would typically check, specify to BillQuick that you want, his standard hours per day are 8 hours and standard hours per week are 40 hours, and you would typically go ahead and check this overtime checkbox if you wanted BillQuick to automatically mark his time as overtime when he exceeded 8 hours per day or exceeded 40 hours per week. So in this particular example, to demonstrate how powerful our overtime calculator is, I'm going to leave that overtime checkbox unchecked for Mark. So what would happen now, when Mark records his timesheet would not get split automatically as he enters timesheet. So here's his timesheet for last week, and I'm looking at his timesheet, and I have 9 hours, 10 hours, 11 hours, 12 hours, 13 hours. I just chose that sequence because it's easy to remember. But technically what would have happened if that OT checkbox was checked, that 9-hour time entry would have been split into 8 and 1, the 10-hour time entry would have been split into 8 and 2, and so on and so forth. So it will take every one of those time entry, take the first 8 hours as regular time and split it. But that didn't happen because the OT checkbox at the employee level was turned off. So how do you come back prior to payroll and tell BillQuick to automatically analyze this timesheet and go ahead and figure out what's regular time and overtime? So under the utility menus, we added this overtime calculator this year. So once you click on the overtime calculator, you get all your employees, including your vendors, if you wanted to see your vendors. And you can check which ones you want to analyze, and all I have to do is click on the checkbox, and then of course your date range, which is the timesheet week that you want to look at. And then at the bottom it says reset overtime flag for existing entries. Now what that really does is, let's say you manually marked one of the time entries overtime because the client specifically authorized you, and you want to leave that alone. You don't want to touch that. You could uncheck this one and it won't touch that. But if you don't uncheck this one, then it will reset that also to regular time and then begin its analysis. This is important because often there might be a specific client that's authorized you for overtime. So once you keep that checked, and of course the last checkbox in there says, well, ignore the fact that whether automatic overtime is checked or not, so analyze it anyway. So once I hit that recalculate overtime, I get a dialog box saying, are you sure you want to recalculate? I'll say yes. And in a fraction of a second, BillQuick will then analyze my timesheet for Mark and say, look, there are 5 entries. All 5 of them need to be updated. And in addition to them, all 5 of them need to be split into 2 parts because part of it's regular time and part of it's overtime. So it's giving me that one more chance to bail out of it in case I want to go ahead and review the timesheet one more time. But in most cases, you'll just simply go ahead and hit yes on this particular dialog box and be done. And your regular time and overtime is automatically calculated. And here's the best part. Of course, we didn't just take the regular time and overtime. We, of course, look at all the rules that apply to those specific projects, including your fee schedule. So if you have a fee schedule that you created and you have different rates for regular time and overtime, it will apply those rates accurately based on that fee schedule. So here you can see it split the 8 and 1, 8 and 2, and this one was 11-hour time entry. And notice at the bottom, the 3-hour time entry is marked as overtime. And the bill rate on the 3-hour time entry is $150, and the cost rate is $45. because that's the rate for the overtime. While as for the regular one, the OT checkbox is not checked, and the rates are for the regular time rates. So amazing tool that simplifies the process, typically now run by the admin people right before the payroll, and then you can print it. Of course, nothing changes in terms of the end result. The job costing remains the same and all that stuff. But, of course, if you have a different overtime cost rate and overtime bill rate, then your project spending and your job cost, direct cost, will be impacted if your rates are higher for the overtime. So once again, I want to remind you that it is available under Utilities menu, and it is referred to as Overtime Calculator on that menu. So moving on to the next feature, and this is one of the features that I can tell you that was coming in from a lot of people over the years, and the demand here was, hey, allow us to collect money from our clients and not have to print those aging reports and write notes on those aging reports, and then there's multiple copies that are floating around, and there's no collaboration between different people that are trying to call the client in order for them to pay their invoices. So we made it really simple, and we put a little bit of intelligence into this new collection center. So first of all, collection center is available under billing menu, not under project menu. And when you open the collection center, it looks pretty much like your invoice review screen. So it has view by, and you can choose a range of projects. You can set up your filters. You can look at open invoices only, and hit the refresh button, and you get all your invoices that you ever had in the system. And if you look at your net amount, your billed, your paid, your balance, all of that comes in very easily. Where the fun begins is when you click on an invoice, you get some important information. Right at the bottom, it'll show you the payment history. And to the right of the payment history, it'll show you some important key metrics. For example, for that specific client, what is the average hourly rate that we're making with that specific client? So you can see that your company earns about $82.67 for that client. And the average invoice value, which is a very important number for you to gauge which client is bringing in higher average invoice values, is shown right on that screen. And then, of course, if the client has any retainer with you, what that retainer balance is. And towards the bottom, there are three numbers in here that are very important for your cash flow. And let's look at these numbers. Time entry to invoice, days. This is the average days from the date the time entry was recorded to the date the invoice was created. And then there's the second number, which is invoice to payment, which is how long did it take for the client to pay after you sent that invoice. And in this particular case, you can very clearly see your bottleneck was the fact that client took almost a year, maybe year and few months to pay that invoice. So the time entry from the day you provided service to the day you got payment, 430 days. These are important numbers for you to learn about and control, and go back and either do the invoices faster or rework your client contracts or start charging late fees, whatever it takes, if there's a pattern and that pattern is causing your cash flow to choke. So I also expanded the journal section. As you can see, if you are making the collection efforts, you can write in journal notes, and all those journal notes regarding that invoice will be available to you on the screen. So this is, again, one of those things where multiple people can now work on the collection effort, and you are no longer guessing what might have been said in the last conversation. That is now documented and linked to that invoice permanently, so you can see the full history in that particular case. As you click on any of the journal notes, you can see what was said and what actions were taken by your company, and you can further add to that in terms of what the promises made were by the client. So very important to look at your numbers and key metrics right there, and at the same time be able to add the notes to it so that you can collaborate on that effort of collection and make it easy for your team to know where we stand with this client. Project Center is by far one of our big features in 2012. and Project Center is not something that we started working in 2011. It's almost 2 years in working. A lot of research went into the Project Center in order to bring in this one dashboard kind of a screen, or one center where everything a project manager or a principal needs is all at one place. So you don't have to look for information. It is all at one place. And to make it sweeter for the project manager, we of course added a lot of intelligence into that particular screen. So let's take a look at our 2012 Project Center. So first of all, it's available directly under the project menu, and it has its own security, so you can tell the system who can access it and who cannot. And of course, you can also set it in such a way that if you give project managers access to their projects only, they will only see their projects. They're not going to see anybody else's projects. So here is our Project Center, and as you can see to the right, I have some important numbers that I need to look at as a project manager right away. How much have I spent on my services and my expenses, and what my contract was and what's remaining on it. And this is based on a contract comparison, as you can see, and then you go down to the totals and you see what's left in that particular contract. Towards the bottom, you will see the profit analysis. How profitable is this project for your company? So you have 3 important metrics in there: what your billable value of your time and expenses are, and what the cost related to those time and expenses are, and what the direct profits are. Now, this is obviously the loaded cost, because BillQuick does not take the pay rate, but BillQuick takes the loaded cost for the projects. So you can easily see those numbers in there. And to the right of that is our billability analysis, where it actually shows you how much of your time and expense is billable on that project, and what has been billed, what's remaining in your work in progress that is unbilled, and more importantly also, is there any non-billable time on that project. Going further down, you will see the efficiency bar. Now, shoot for 90% efficiency on your projects, as typically everyone would want to. That's where the profits are the best. In this case, I have 95% efficiency, and you can see the billable is shown in green. If I hover over that, it will show me the total dollar amounts associated with that particular efficiency. And then, of course, on the earned value, we did something even better than normal earned versus actual. We actually included a third metric called earned value actual. So what that really means is that you have your actual cost, which is basically your hours times your cost rate, and then what you also have is the percentage complete times your contract amount, which is your earned value, and then the earned value actual would be what you really billed. So it doesn't matter what your bill, with your bill rate times your hours are. What matters is how much did you end up writing up or writing down that particular time or expense. So you see that as a blue bar or a blue line on your earned value chart in there. So very important. And all these numbers that we're looking at on these charts are actually for the project that I have currently selected. And including the timeline at the bottom, a very important history of the project, a rolling 12-month timeline showing you the billing and the payments and the time and expense. As you can see, this project has had a lot of activity in the last 2 months, and then you can also see your payments. In the lower left corner, the earned value graph that you see in the lower left corner is for all the projects for that particular project manager that you're looking at. So the right side was one specific project. The left side is all the projects, and you can see the bigger picture on the earned value. And then you also have your messages, your to-do list, your reminders, all in one place, specific to that project manager. So he knows what he has on his to-do list, if he has any project-specific messages, and all the reminders that are there for the project, whatever those reminders might be or events might be on that particular project. I just wanted to also mention that in addition to the contract comparison, you can also do a budget comparison where you can now compare your results with the budgeted amount. So now, of course, look at the budgeted amount. It was only $73,000, so we have a little less left, and the budgeted hours as compared to spent and what the remaining are. So if your company is creating a budget, which we highly recommend you do, then you can compare your projects to what you budgeted, not compare it to the contract because you want to stay under budget. Contract sometimes also has contingencies in it, and that's multiple tabs on the project screen. The time and expense tab is one tab where every time and expense entry for the project is in one place, and you as a project manager or principal can review them. You can, of course, select multiple time entries and take action on them, such as approve them. Very easy, one place. You can submit them to other people for review, whatever you need to do. It has filters, very similar to the reviewer screen that is available. All journal entries for the project will be at one place. All your assignments will be in that screen, who's working on it, what activities, and of course your allocations, who's assigned how many hours on that particular project. And then just as you would get in the project screen, a snapshot of the accounting on that particular project. The columns that you typically see are cost column, the billable column, the billed columns, and the unbilled, and then some important numbers towards the bottom, including your total actual hours and budgeted B hours and your new earned values and things like that. So very important dashboard without you having to run multiple reports. And then, of course, on the history tab, every invoice and payment that ever occurred on that particular project is listed in this screen, including the purchase orders, the vendor bills that might have gone out. So you can have one place you can look at, okay, which consultants have billed me on this project? How much of that bill have I then cross-billed to my client? What the status of that is, whether it's been paid or not. Excellent, excellent way of you getting everything done by just simply visiting the project center. And I have to say that this feature has received the most compliments than any other feature in the history of BillQuick. So project managers and principals are loving it. Notice the red dot on the project list on the left. This is our way of bringing in the intelligence and saying, you need to take a look at this particular project. Something's not right on that project. So if I click on that project, I know that is an overhead project. That's why BillQuick is looking at it. And you can see nothing on this project is billable, and there are no profits. Actually, it's negative. Everything is not billable. So that's okay. But you could actually be getting those red dots based on the type of comparison you want to make. So take a look at this option box that is right below that, where you could pick the project managers that you want to review. As an example, all my project managers are listed here. So let me just click one project manager and notice that the list now consolidated to his project only. So if I add one more or two more, now I'm looking at 3 project managers. And then, of course, I also have the option of comparing based on the budget basis or the contract basis. If I hit the contract basis, notice that not 1, but now 5 red dots appeared. So what that means, when BillQuick is analyzing your data based on the contract amounts, it's saying there are 4 or 5 projects that are in trouble and when it is analyzing the results based on the contract amount. As compared to the profit basis, only 1 project was in trouble. So you're profitable on more projects, but you may be exceeding the contract amount on some of them or have near exceeded those contract amounts. So excellent way for you to do your comparisons the way you prefer, whether it's budget basis or contract basis. You don't have to leave this screen. This is the screen you're going to be every day on, or at least once a week, and encourage your managers to visit the screen. No more excuses of, I didn't know where we were on that project, because everything you can think of, journal entries, invoices, payments, vendor bills, allocations, everything is in one place, including one screen showing you both time and expense in the same exact screen. So enjoy this feature, and you will see the difference. Now, I wanted to make a quick note here. I know this is an enterprise feature only, and we have had a lot of pro users ask us why it was made an enterprise-only feature. We did not initially estimate that it was something that pro companies would need. By the time we got the feedback from you, it was too late for us to reverse what we had already done. But please do upgrade to enterprise and take advantage of feature of our upgrade price is not much, and it should be worth the extra dollars to get that. All right, so let's go ahead and move on to the second part of the presentation, which is the fast round. I refer to it fast round because in less than 5 minutes, I will be finishing up these remaining features that you should know about, and you can, of course, play with them in BillQuick 2012. All right, so starting with, let's see, the first one is the global settings made easy. I already highlighted that. We completely reorganized the user interface, not just in global settings, but many screens, and many of our users actually helped us in where they wanted what. And here's the case. We have developed it and made it simple for you to find information and set your rules in the global settings screen. You will love it. This year, just like every year, we introduced a new theme in BillQuick, and I personally love this theme because this is a really light-colored theme. We refer to it as Clear Sky, and that's the default theme in BillQuick. Very light blue, kind of the good clear day that we haven't seen lately, but today it looks like a clear day in LA. So Clear Sky, hopefully you'll like it, but you can always go back to your own theme if you wanted to. This is one of my favorites, a very powerful feature, even though it's in the fast round, but this is something we have received a lot of emails over years. Now, ability for you to edit payments. Once you have recorded a payment, you can come back and later on edit that payment. If you forgot to enter the check number, if you forgot to enter the reference number, or anything like that, even the amount, even if you want to disperse it differently to different invoices, absolutely yes. As soon as you pick the existing invoice, and notice we moved the history button to the toolbar. So you see all your payment history for the specific line that you selected right on the toolbar. You pick one of the payments, the edit button becomes available, and you can go ahead and then edit an existing payment. You are going to like it, and thank you for being persistent in letting us know we want it, and yes, we did. The only catch on this one, for those of you who are integrating with QuickBooks or Peachtree or any other software, that if you are going to completely reapply the payment to different invoices, it will actually delete the old payment and reapply it as a different payment. In that case, you need to delete it from QuickBooks. But if you're not changing any numbers, then you can it'll maintain the integration with that payment. Print multiple reports. This is something that I encourage all of you to do. Take the memorized report and give it a new shape. Create your weekly reports, your monthly reports, your quarterly report sections, and your yearly report sections, and put your reports in there. As an example, you can see here I have my monthly reports, and what do I print on a monthly basis? Billing analysis by clients, billing analysis by project managers, billing summary, cash receipts by client, and project management report, and I might even have aging report as part of that. So now I got the 4 or 5 reports that I need to get to several people. I can now right-click at the top of my section for the memorized reports, that section that I created, and I can preview them all, or I can print them all in one click. You don't have to remember filters or anything. They're all memorized. And if you preview them all, of course, then you can email them all from the preview window, making it very easy for those of you who are responsible for getting certain reports to certain people on a certain frequency to organize that. It's an excellent feature. Again, saving you the time and making it easy for you to get the things done. And this is something that we should have done a long time ago. We had the security, but we made it even further easier by having one place where you can turn off the ability for people to see the cost rate on any report. And we gave you cost rate controls in 4 different levels. Cost rates that are related to the master records, such as employees' cost rate on the employee screen or project cost on the project screen, showing you time entry related cost, or showing you expense related cost, or showing you budget related cost. So you can go ahead and say, don't show them on the reports. And here's the best part, guys. This is where I'm so proud of our team. We not only implemented this feature so that it applies to 500 reports that BillQuick comes with, this feature is implemented automatically for your own custom reports. So if you ever did a custom report with us, or you did it on your own, it will actually scan it on the fly when you run the report, and if it finds a cost field in there, it will hide that automatically if you uncheck one of these 4 check boxes, and the report falls into that category. One place, pick your employee, go under the report center, and uncheck those 4 settings, and you're done. You no longer have to worry about accidentally displaying cost rate. Timer. No more of that big window unless you really need to drill deep. A small timer like a grid. Notice the right column actually has a stop and start button in it. You can run multiple timers at the same time. You can pick the project, the activity, and the description. The employee will be obviously default picked for you, and that column will be hidden. But you can specify the project and run this window as a window on top. And we did give you an option this year to hide this window if you wanted to hide this window and not be on the top at all, just be a regular window. So very powerful enhancements to the timers. To-do alerts. So this is something that we have added this year where you could actually, set up your to-dos and then set up a reminder. And if you set up a reminder on that particular date, BillQuick will remind you to get that task done. Excellent way to set up a to-do for your employee birthdays or anything else that might be coming up, and let it remind you a week before so that you can buy that birthday card. Allocation, you're going to love this. We added Gantt charts to the bottom of the allocation screen, and you can resize that. And more importantly, notice the red arrow at the bottom. What that is really telling you is I highlighted in red. You won't see it in red, but it will actually show you how much of that budget has been burned. So that is the percentage of the hours or actual hours burned. So in this particular case, you might have allocated, let's say, 40 hours or 50 hours to a task, and if half of it's been burned, that bar will get filled half with the dark yellow color on that Gantt chart. And of course, you can stretch these bars, shrink these bars, give more hours to people. Excellent way for you to quickly move people around a project through the new Gantt charts within our allocation, project allocation screen. All right. Employee expenses to payables. Those of you who are using accounts payable functionality in BillQuick, you asked us and we delivered it here. If employees enter reimbursable expenses in BillQuick, BillQuick will automatically create a vendor bill for them, so that when you go to the pay vendor bill screen, you will see those employee expenses automatically there. So you don't have to calculate, you don't have to figure out if they're approved, they're marked as reimbursable. It will bring it in as a pay, to be paid or AP element, and you can cut a check very easily from the screen. And the new home screen that you probably know about is more than 6 icons. Now you have the entire workflow in there. You have the quick list to the right, and you have the link to our blog and, of course, to our knowledge base and a few other things. So very easy for you to see your submittals of your time entries, expense entries, invoice submittals, and take action directly from this screen. This is the first screen you will typically see when you log into BillQuick. There are 22 new reports, and here's a list of those reports. Obviously, the print is small, but don't worry, we will email you, and you can zoom in to see all the 22 reports. Send expense details QuickBooks. So what if you do not want to send, when you're sending an invoice, you don't want to send time details to QuickBooks, but you do want to send the expense line item details to QuickBooks because your expenses typically might hit multiple chart of accounts. We did that this year. We separated out the time details from expense details on an invoice and gave you the ability to decide which contract type, for which contract types you want to send the expenses to QuickBooks or not send the expenses. So giving you a lot more control there. And that brings me to one quick note here. On June 22nd, we all will be in Tampa, Florida, including Stephanie and a few other BQE team members. And any of you who has attended BillQuick on tour knows the value of this particular one-day session. And it is at an amazing resort, and we're coming very close to it. So I encourage all of you to go ahead and take advantage of this one-day tour. We are focusing on business intelligence. This is really geared towards the admin people, the billing staff, the principals, and the project managers. And you will walk with an experience about BillQuick that you never had before, and hopefully be able to apply it. But more importantly, it's on Friday. Come for the weekend, stay at the resort, and we are doing a buy one, get one free this month. So if you have another person you want to get with you, that person's cost has been paid for. And myself and Irfan and Mark will be there. Please do visit our website for additional details on that. And I look forward to seeing as many of you can and meeting with all of you personally.